or if you lose your connection tonight, don't worry, we're recording the meeting, so we're recording the webinar, so it'll be available tomorrow on our YouTube channel as well. So it'll be up there if you do lose your reception. Don't worry too much about it. So I'll just pass to Laura and we'll get going. So if you wouldn't mind yet, just muting yourself there if you're not, and thanks very much.
Thanks, Stephen, and thanks everybody for joining us this evening and taking some time out to join the webinar, join the workshop on wellness as we age. For anybody that joined me last week, we are going to cover a little bit from last week, just kind of the introductory topics, and then really dive into the different areas on how we look after our health into our later years in life. So for anybody that wasn't on last week, my name's Laura Keeley. I'm founder of Bridge Nutrition. I'm a nutritionist and I run a nutrition consultancy business. So if you want to look at any of my work, you can go to bridgenutrition.ie or social media at Bridge Nutrition. So guys, as Stephen said, just please keep your mics muted throughout the workshop, just so we don't get any background interference. If you do have questions, and I encourage you to ask them, there's no question too small. There's no question I probably haven't heard before as well. So I guarantee you, whatever you're thinking, there's probably 2 or 3 people have the same question. So type that into the chat box, and then at the end, I'll make sure that we go through all the questions that are asked, and then whatever questions were asked in the sign up form as well, I'll get around to those. But you'll probably see that, just think of the question you asked, it's probably being covered throughout the next 45 minutes or so, okay? But do ask questions, I encourage you. So tonight we're going to focus on wellness as we age. What are the areas of our health, of our lifestyle, of our daily habits to focus on, improve? What should we implement to make sure that we age as healthy as possible? So what we're going to cover, like I said, we're going to do a very, very short recap on last week. Last week we talked really about the basics of nutrition, Nutrition 101. What do we need to eat in order to be at our healthiest? Okay, so I'm just going to cover some basics around that so people don't get lost and follow what I say. I'm going to talk about how we age and why we age at different rates. Jumping into the topic then of hydration, which we did cover last week as well. And then the really, really important topic of sarcopenia. Now, if you haven't heard about this, it's something that you should hopefully know a lot about by the end of this workshop, okay? And again, if you do have questions on this topic as I'm covering it, pop them into the chat box and I'll get back to them. Talking about 2 really important nutrients as well, protein and fiber, why they especially need our attention as we get a little bit older. And then micronutrients. Now, we didn't really cover these last week. We're going to talk about vitamins and minerals tonight. That's micronutrients, and some particular ones that we need to focus on as we get into our later life as well. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up then by talking a little bit about creatine. If you haven't heard of that either, again, hopefully you'll be a lot more knowledgeable on it by the end, and also about sleep. So let's kick off there. So this is the basics. We talked about this last week. What exactly is wellness? What does that mean to people? You know, what exactly does it incorporate? It's not just about, you know, eating healthily and doing a little bit of exercise. Our wellness, our general health and well-being is made up of a few different facets, okay? So our physical health, obviously, so how we move, how fit we are, and then we also have obviously our mental health, which thankfully has come to kind of the forefront of people's well-being in the last few years. We have our spiritual health as well, emotional, social and environmental, okay? So it's just to appreciate that there's a lot more to being healthy than just, you know, what we weigh or, you know, how many pieces of fruit we eat a day. You know, there's a lot more. It's very complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, but to be aware of them is the first step to improving each of them as well. Now, as we age, our body do change, okay? So the idea here is, you know, which parts are under our control. And, you know, from the moment we're born, our bodies do begin to change. And those changes will continue throughout life. So I will just show you, I just want to get my laser pointer here. So obviously you can see, like, there's common changes we can see from our, you know, early years in life, our childhood, adolescence, right into, you know, our 70s, 80s, 90s. And they, you know, there's stark differences between, say, an adolescent and a person in their 90s. And the idea behind this workshop is to get the insights of how to age into our later years as healthy as possible. Okay, so the different changes we'll see is that our energy levels will go down. Okay, our immune systems will not be as strong as they used to be. Our hormones change as well. Our mobility, so we lose strength, we lose our joints aren't as mobile as they used to be. Our metabolism as well. Okay, so different things happen. Our appetite will reduce. Our blood sugar control won't be as good as it was in our early life as well. Our bones as well will weaken, so that's where we address it with our diet, and then our cognition will decline as we get older as well. So it's just to appreciate that our bodies will change in certain ways, and what we need to do is ensure that our habits, that our lifestyle, our nutrition, our exercise regimes are giving our body the optimum environment to keep us healthy for as long as possible. Because it's not just about, like, although growing old is inevitable, none of us are immortal, we can delay the rate at which we age. Okay, it's not about living forever, but it's about being as healthy for as long as possible. Okay, so we have our lifespan, and in addition to a long lifespan, we also want a long health span, the highest quality of life for as long as possible. And the idea behind that is that, it allows us to be active into our later years. It allows us, play with kids and grandkids, and to do so without aches and pains, and to feel good in ourselves, and to have good mental health, and to really be fit and have a healthy mind and healthy body. And how to do that, the best tools that we can use to do that, to improve that health span, are good nutrition and good lifestyle habits. Okay, and in saying that, I have to also acknowledge that healthy habits can have a major effect in your lifespan if you start them young. But the thing is, it's never too late to bring in these habits. It's never too late to improve your exercise, improve your movement, improve your sleep, improve your hydration, your nutrition habits. It's never too late to do that. Okay, now the stuff I'm going to talk here tonight, it's not going to reduce reverse the years or turn back the clock or anything like that. It's not going to make you live forever, but it can certainly help you age better, okay, and become more resilient to age. And that's what we're going to try and do. Okay, because the idea is you don't stop because you get older. You may feel you get older because you stop. And to have the mindset of, I can bring in healthy habits, I can bring in good nutrition choices, is really important. You need to believe that you can do it. Okay, and appreciating food for what it is. Okay, so we know that what we eat and drink, it fuels our body for our movement, it helps repair and refuel it, and it will determine how healthy you are, both inside and out. Now, in older age, good nutrition, it's vital. It's more important than ever, because it's going to determine how you age. Okay, because some people think that some things that we see later in life, that they're just inevitable, and it's because I'm getting older. So say, for instance, you've got a bad back, or you've got maybe you've put on a little bit of weight around your middle, or maybe you've kind of like got repeated high blood sugars or something like this, and you just call it, well, I'm getting older, I'm aging, and that's why it's happening. But those kind of things they're more the accumulation of lifestyle habits. Okay, so like if you've maybe gained weight, that's probably because you've stopped moving as much as you used to, and maybe your diet isn't as focused as it used to be. If you've got a bad back, maybe that's because you don't get enough exercise, you're not mobile enough. Potentially, if you're getting repeated levels of high blood sugars, you may need to address your diet. Okay, so there's reasoning for everything, and there's definitely older people out there who don't see any of the so-called aging symptoms or aging ailments, we call them. So what I'm trying to say more so is that what we call is just accepting things, accepting different things is because we're aging. It may not necessarily be true. It may just need something in your lifestyle habits, your nutrition may just need to be addressed. So there's things that are, that we are in control of in how we age, and then there's things that we're not in control of, and it's really, really important to actually appreciate these two things. Okay, so if we look at excuse me, if we look at things that we can control in terms of the symptoms of our aging, so like we just said, nutrition and lifestyle habits would be a big one. So, we can control, what we eat, and, whether we smoke or not, whether or not we get enough walking in throughout the week, whether or not we practice, positive mental health activities, things like that, our mindset and our outlook. So that's a big one, because as soon as we think that we can make a change in our lives, we're far more likely to make it. So, and as soon as we think that we can't, well, you won't. So if you're somebody that thinks, oh, I'm never going to be able to eat 5 portions of veg a day, well, then you won't. Okay. Or if you're someone that thinks, I'd never be able to run a 5K, well, then you'll never do it. But if you're someone that thinks now, do you know what, I'd love to be able to run a 5K one day. I wonder how I'd get about that. Maybe I'll start off with running. You'll start off with just short runs or short walks. Maybe I'll start off with 2 portions of veg a day and try and get it up 1 portion per week. It's about having a really positive mindset if you do want to make changes. Now, the next one will feed straight into that. It's the company we keep. So if you're trying to make any positive lifestyle changes, you need to make sure that whoever you live with or whoever you spend time with is on board with doing that. Because if you have someone behind you telling you, kind of scoffing at you, or telling you that what you're doing is useless or pointless or whatever, that change is going to be very hard to implement. Okay, so make sure that the company that you're with, or the people you spend time with, are on board with your healthy habit changes or your lifestyle changes. And then appreciating an adjustable environment. So for instance, if you don't think that you are eating as healthy as you should be at the moment, then you may need to make sure that the environment you're in has healthy food to hand. Or for instance, say if you're someone that's working all day and you're quite sedentary, you're sitting at a desk, that's an environment that you can change by either scheduling walks or scheduling maybe changing your desk into a standing desk or something along the lines of that. Okay. Now, there's some things we can't control. So things like genetics. So, genetically, if you're from a family that has high cholesterol or something like that, you're genetically predisposed. You can't really change it, but you're going to have to adapt your lifestyle to it. Okay. Perhaps it's your upbringing, your family history. Again, perhaps you grew up in a house where nobody cooked, and therefore you really don't feel comfortable in the kitchen. That's something that you have to appreciate and kind of adapt to as well. Your past choices, and then a fixed environment that you can't change, would be something that wouldn't be in your control as well. So the idea about trying to make adjustments and trying to bring in different habits or different nutrition or lifestyle changes is that you need to let go of the stuff you can't control. Okay, and you need to work to improve the things as best you can that are within your control, and that's the real first step to making healthy changes in your life. Okay, so this is kind of what we're going to be covering in terms of what actually changes as we age. Firstly, our bodies do burn less calories at rest. Okay. Now, this doesn't mean that we have a slow metabolism or that your metabolism is broken or any nonsense like that. It just means that our BMR, our basal metabolic rate, and that's the rate at which we burn calories at rest, is just slightly slower. It's nothing detrimental. It's nothing mad. It's not mad numbers. It's by maybe 100 to 200 calories. So it's not major, but it means that this combined with less movement, as what happens with a lot of people get older, they move less, they make kind of more convenient food choices, they maybe don't make the best food choices, and combined with the fact that their body burns slightly less calories at rest, over a number of years, this can have a cumulative effect, and therefore we see weight gain. And that's when people kind of go, they say, it's middle-age spread, or it's because I have slow metabolism now, or something like that. It isn't, it's not something that happens to everybody, and it's something that can definitely be prevented, but it just needs to be acknowledged and addressed as well. Now, what I spoke about at the start is that your risk of sarcopenia rises, and that's muscle wasted as we age, which I'm going to cover in a lot of detail now in the coming slides. So, and 2 things with that is focusing on exercise and focusing on protein intake. So quickly, when we get stuck into talking about nutrition, folks, I just want to, this is what we would have covered last week. So anybody that was on the webinar with us last week, on the workshop with us last week, this is kind of going over the basics again, just a recap of it for anybody who's new. This is essentially to remind you what all the major nutrients of food is, okay? So when we talk about food and when we talk about nutrients, this exact here is what we talk about. We're talking about our macronutrients, okay? So these macros, so they're the big nutrients, that's carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. We then have our micronutrients, okay? So we have minerals and vitamins, they're micronutrients. And then we have water, which is also, you know, it's a major nutrient of life. And then this here, it always gets its own little area. It's basically fiber, it's our roughage, okay? It does get its own little area because it's very, very important in our diet. It's a component of carbohydrate. I'm not going to overcomplicate anything, but that's just essentially what it is. And I am going to be speaking about it in more detail tonight as well. So your basics of nutrition, nutrition 101, these are all your essential nutrients of life. We need all of these nutrients to stay healthy, to stay alive, to keep fit, to stay strong, keep active, to fight disease, everything like that, okay? These are all, so forget about everything else. This is what you need to know in terms of nutrients of food. Again, very quickly, this was covered last week, the Eat Well plate. When we're talking about like how our meals should look, or, you know, what kind of portions do we have of different types of food, just let me hammer this home. For your lunch and dinner, the majority of your plate should be covered in vegetables. Let's just forget about fruit for a second, and we're not pushing it. We're just kind of taking it out for a second. Imagine this whole thing is vegetables. You want half your plate to be veg, and I can't stress that enough, because we all know what the classic Irish plate looks like. You know, no matter what it is, it's you know, a half plate of spuds, maybe a couple of little bits of cabbage or broccoli or something, or carrots, and then a piece of meat, steak or a pork chop or chicken, whatever it is. You know, we need to just kind of shift it a little bit. And think about even like with a chicken curry or something like that, you'll have a load of chicken, load of curry, small tiny bit of veg, and a load of rice. So we just need to shift the paradigm. We need to shift that plate around, and we need to just really get focused. Just think the whole time, half a plate of vegetables, how am I going to get that on? And 2 to 3 different kinds of veg on that plate. And that's just kind of get it thinking. It's a very simplistic approach, and I do understand there's a lot of different ways we eat, and, you know, I don't want to I'm not trying to overcomplicate anything, but it's just a hit home that we need a lot of veg in our diet. When you're looking at your diet, you're looking at finding the balance, okay? So it's the majority, so like 80% of your food intake, 80% of your meals, 80% of your snacks should look like what I've highlighted here on the left, okay? So lean meats, and if you're plant-based, if you're vegetarian or vegan, of course we're going for those other plant protein sources. But if you're an omnivore, like the majority of us are, that we eat meat and veg, you're going for your lean meats. And this means that oily fish, chicken, you know, very unprocessed red meat. So nothing wrong with a bit of lamb or a bit of steak, but just more on occasion. And definitely like things that we're reducing are things like highly processed red meats, like sausages, rashers, highly processed, like breaded frozen chicken, things like that. It's just that they have more added things that are, you know, they've more added saturated fats, more trans fats, more high salt. This is what we're looking at for the majority of the time. This is what our intake should be. Whole grains. You don't need to avoid bread. You don't need to avoid grains, nothing like that. They're very good for us, full of fiber, full of beta glucans, really healthy for our digestive system, really good source of energy. So definitely anything, go for whole grain versions, whole grain rice, whole wheat pasta, whole grain bread. Go for the brown varieties of everything as much as you can, okay? Then obviously our veggies, 5 portions of fruit, or excuse me, 5 portions of veg a day. You can get in lots of different areas, from lots of different colors, and this is what, as much variety as you can. Nothing wrong with frozen veg. If it means that you're consistently going to get veg in through your diet, that's perfect. You don't need to go organic either. The research has shown us that organic veg is not more healthier than just regular veg. So there's no need to go for it. If you do want to go organic, no problem at all, but it's not necessary for it to be healthier, okay? Our healthy fats then, oily fish, avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, rapeseed oil, all really good forms. We should not remove fat from our diet. We need it, but we opt for the healthy sources. Then beans, peas, legumes, pulses, okay? Really, really important in our diet. Very high in fiber, very high in nutrients, very good for our digestive systems, our energy, have some plant protein in there as well, and our fruit, okay? So three portions of fruit a day, very, very good for us as well, full of nutrients, full of fiber. So that's a real blast of nutrition, folks. And I appreciate that whoever wasn't here last week, that's a lot of information to take. But I suppose just reiterating what we should, people always ask me, Laura, what do I eat to be healthy? These things here, all of these things in lots of different ways, combined with each other, cooked in different ways, whatever way that suits you. You know, again, I always get asked, what's the best diet? The best diet is the one that meets your nutritional needs. It doesn't matter what form it comes in, okay? We want a varied, balanced diet. We want less of this stuff over here. Now, I'm not saying to cut this out. Nobody's going to cut that out. Okay, I enjoy takeaway as much as the next person. I love a bag of crisps and a chocolate bar as much as the next person. We just need to have them in moderation. So it means that the other 20% of our time, this is the food we're eating, okay? It's not the majority of our time. It's on occasion. It's, you know, I can't dictate how much chocolate you're going to eat during the week. There's no issue in having a small bar of chocolate a day if you want to have it. It's when we start getting, when this food becomes our primary source of nutrients, then we hit trouble, because these foods, they don't contain vitamins, they don't contain minerals, they don't contain fiber, or very little of it. They might have some protein, and they'll have a lot of saturated and trans fats, which isn't the good fat for us, okay? When we have high sugar foods, there's a very fast energy turnover. So we have, you know, bursts of energy, and then we have our energy then diminishes, and we basically have a drop, and we get very sluggish. So this is not where we want to focus our main source of food intake from, but it's fine on occasion. If you're a healthy individual and you have a takeaway, that does not make you unhealthy. If you continue eating low nutrient foods over a prolonged period of time, it will have a cumulative effect. And yes, it may have a negative effect on your health. But having sweets and takeaways occasionally is absolutely fine. You should enjoy them guilt-free. They're very much a part of a healthy diet. And this is what that looks like. So it's kind of like, this is kind of, you know, it's a realistic approach to food. It's food realism, okay? Because no one goes their whole life without eating chocolate or having a takeaway or having a pizza or whatever it is you like, okay? It's about appreciating that when we want to have something, having it, but making sure that we hit all of our other nutrients as well. So, you know, maybe for your 11s is, instead of having a croissant and a cappuccino, you have a croissant, a banana, and a handful of nuts, or maybe a couple of biscuits, a banana, and a small handful of nuts. So you're getting your other nutrients in with the thing that you like the taste of, okay? So that's, excuse me, the 80-20 approach, balancing your eating and a flexible approach to your food intake. So that's a kind of recap from last week. Again, we covered a lot more in that workshop, and I know Stephen told me that it is on YouTube. So if you do want to watch that back, that we go into a lot more detail on this area. You get on the Fingal Sport YouTube. So hydration, next topic I want to talk about. It's incredibly important to stay hydrated, regardless of where you are in life. But it is very important that as you age, you hydrate, okay? Ensuring, you know, as we get older, especially to our later years in life, we do become more susceptible to things like urinary tract infections, dehydration, that can have a knock-on effect on our appetite, you know, our micronutrient absorption. So really getting a good kind of hydration habit in early, or as best you can, is really important, okay? So number one rule is that when you wake up in the morning, you hydrate before you caffeinate, okay? So maybe if you're a person that gets up and reaches straight for the coffee and then drinks coffee all day, and coffee and tea, they do contribute to your hydration, but it shouldn't be our main source, okay? So ensuring that, kind of having a rule that you have a glass of water in before you drink anything else. So what a trick I have is that I have a bottle of water beside my bed at nighttime, and as soon as I wake up, I take a few slugs. So straight away, you're already starting that hydration after an overnight fast, okay? Because you will wake up dehydrated. Aiming for about 1 liter per 25 kilograms of body weight. So there's about 4 stone and 25 kilos. So just think, for every 4 stone you are, drink 1 liter of water. Now you can go by your urine as well, okay? So, you know, if you're going to the toilet, you know, about every 90 minutes or so, you're hydrated, you're fine, you know, you can go by that. But if you find that you haven't gone to the toilet all day, it's more likely that you're dehydrated, okay? Now, the reason why we also say to eat loads of fruit and veg, it's full of water, so it also helps you hydrate as well. If you're someone that doesn't like any water, just, you know, you're just not fussed on it, or you find it just difficult to remind yourself, you know, there's nothing wrong with adding a little bit of sugar-free cordial to it. Okay, that will actually make it taste a little better. It'll increase your drive to drink. So there's no problem having that if you're going to drink more with it. If you're someone that's if you are, you know, a big exerciser already, or maybe you're taking up a little bit of exercise now, do remember to drink after you've exercised. You will, even going out for a brisk walk, you'll probably lose a few 100 milliliters. Okay, so making sure you're hydrating after you work out. This is the P chart. Okay, so it's exactly what it says on the tin. You just compare this to the color of your urine. Okay, so remember that, again, dehydration risk is higher among older adults, and again, especially if you're on prescription medications or anything like that, it can increase your risk of dehydration. If you're someone that suffers with constipation, hydration status, okay, that's a big one. If you're not drinking enough water, that will help. It can worsen constipation. And you know, if you're dehydrated, it can increase risk of, like I said, UTIs and bladder infections, kidney injury, things like that. So we're aiming for that in around probably at least 2 liters of water a day if you can. But it can come from things like broths, teas, coffees, herbal teas, smoothies, soups. They'll all contribute as well. And using this as a good guide. So we're looking for in around here. Okay, like we'll say 2 or 3. Down here, we're getting dehydrated, especially down here. If you're around here every day, you need to look at more fluid consumption. So going for that pale yellow color, not quite clear. This is overhydrated, and we can overhydrate. You put yourself at risk of hyponatremia if you overhydrate, so be wary of it. So looking at your color, so about a kind of a straw yellow color is what you're aiming for. So let's talk about sarcopenia. You may have heard of this, you may not have. It's the age-associated decline in muscle mass and strength. Okay, so it's a really important one to know. It actually begins in our 30s and 40s, which is very surprising to some people, but it's true. Okay, sarcopenia isn't something that just you kind of hit 80 and then it happens. It starts quite early in life, and it's a major contributor to poor health and disability in older adults. Okay, so you may think of, like, I'm sure we all know somebody that's in their very later years in life, where you did know somebody, and you know, they were frail, they were thin, you know, very thin arms, very little muscle. This is sarcopenia, and I suppose we're just not educated enough in about it. It's gotten a lot of research in the last number of years, and which is brilliant because now we're able to educate people on it. But it is something that the majority of people, the clients I work with, maybe in their 50s and 60s, have never heard of it. So it's super important to get educated on it. It's something you can address at any stage, so that's really good as well. So essentially, like we said, it's muscle waste. As if we look at this here, you can see it, and it happens over like a number of years. And that's the kind of thing to learn about lifestyle habits and your nutrition. You know, a good nutrition or good lifestyle habits, you don't see the positive results of them straight away. You need to see more, and the same with negative ones. So poor nutrition, poor lifestyle habits, they have a cumulative effect. They take many years to see those effects. So you need to be aware of what puts you at risk and what doesn't. And sarcopenia is something that you can be at risk from. And when you suffer from sarcopenia, you put yourself at risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, frailty and disability. So that's a big one. Okay, falls and fractures. So when you hear of an older person falling and fracturing their hip, collarbone, leg or wrist, you know, this may be because they're at some stage of sarcopenia. Okay, and it like that. It's not just something that we accept happens because it's common. We seem to, it's just, you know, they were a little bit older, they've gotten frail, but there's ways to offset that frailness, you know, and this is what we're talking about this evening. Loss of physical independence as well, cognitive decline, a lower quality of life, and all-cause mortality. So it's definitely something that, you know, it's not to scare you or anything like that, or give you a fright, but it's just so important to be aware of it. And I talk to sarcopenia, you know, with groups of people as young as 20, and you know, the younger football teams that I work with, this is a topic that we cover because I think it's so important for everybody to be educated in it, because you know, it's something that everybody is at risk of if they don't address it in their lifestyle nutrition habits. Okay. So we want to work on reducing the risk. Okay, so first of all, how are we going to reduce the risk of sarcopenia? You do with adequate nutrition, or excuse me, adequate protein in your diet. Okay, protein is a nutrient that we use to help to repair and grow our muscles, to develop our strength. And now it is really important for other things in our bodies, but this is a big one. Okay, so straight away, obviously, if sarcopenia is muscle wastage, well, we should make sure we have enough of the nutrient that helps build our muscles. Okay, that's anabolic, so that builds our muscles. So adequate protein is the first thing. Now the second thing is resistance exercise. So this would be strength training. Now I don't, before we even start, I don't expect anybody to, if they've never been in the gym, to go in and start doing deadlifts or squats or lift heavy weights, anything like that. We can do strength training in lots of different ways, but it's so important for muscle and bone strength. Okay. And then the next one would be energy intake. So kind of overall nutrient intake, but our energy, so that means our calorie intake, to make sure that's adequate, to make sure it's not over or under what we need. And then meeting the requirements. So these three requirements, the majority of the time will reduce your risk. It's not something that you have to obsess about or think, oh God, am I getting exactly enough protein or something like that? But it's being aware of it and having good habits that help meet those targets every day. And then if you miss it for a few days, if you're on holidays, if you're sick or something like that, it's fine. But it's all, we have to think about that kind of majority. We go on holidays, hopefully when everything's over, we get back on holidays again. We only go on holidays a week or two out of the year, or maybe 3 weeks out of the year. So you have to focus, and then we've got Christmas for a couple of weeks of the year. You have to focus on all the weeks where you're kind of in your regular routine to get these habits implemented, okay? So let's talk about the first point, and that is our protein intake. So basically what we need to focus on is ensuring we get enough overall protein in throughout the day. Okay, so what we need is about a minimum of 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Okay, so that's it's written shorthand there. So to show an example would be, if you don't know your weight in kilograms, I don't recommend going and find it out, because all of these recommendations are met through kilograms. Okay. So if you have a person that's about 70 kilograms, all you do is multiply 70 by 1.2, and that will give you the minimum amount of protein that you should have. All right, so about 84 grams. Now, again, all well and good in saying that, but what does that look like in food? I'm going to show you one time. But the important thing I want to get out is that your needs can be met through a well-planned diet. Okay, there's no real need for supplementation. You can do if you need to, but most people can meet their needs, even at a very high protein intake. Like I have some of my clients and some of my Gaelic football players, in around 200 grams of protein. So, and we do that through food. So, I'm going to show you now how to do it. But when you plan out your meals throughout the day and you ensure that you have enough protein, you want to spread your protein out throughout the day. You don't want to kind of get to the end of the day and think, oh, I'm going to eat 2 big chicken breasts now to hit targets. It's better for our bodies and it's better for muscle development to have them in smaller doses throughout the day. Okay. So looking at where we can actually get that protein from. So really good rule to start is kind of using the hand palm one. Okay. So if it's around the size of your palm for women, that's an adequate portion of protein. Men, you can go a little bit bigger, you can go with 2. Now, obviously, if you're a bigger woman or a smaller man, we use our common sense with this. This is just a very generic recommendation. It's not a rule, because I do understand you can have taller women, you have smaller men. We don't want to get into those kind of semantics, okay? But it's a good guide. Really good sources of protein, all right? So things like oily fish. Now, I've included salmon fillet there, but honestly, guys, any kind of fish, whiting, cod, coley, hake, whatever it is, fish is so healthy for us. It's so good. It's full of nutrients, full of protein. Most of it's low enough in calories, of course, unless it's an oily fish, but it's a really good addition to a healthy diet. Things like turkey steaks and chicken breasts, so really lean sources of protein, low in saturated fats. Okay, if you're plant-based, you can go with tofu or maybe corn or beans, peas, things like that to get your protein intake in. Nothing wrong with having tin tuna or tin salmon. Limit them to about 3 a week if you're very inclined to have them and try and get the kind of the whole sources in as well. And then nothing wrong with an occasional lean steak. If you're like me and you absolutely adore steak, I'd never think about giving it up or recommend giving it up. Steak is not to be had every day, but no food is to be had every day. We have to vary our diet. So nothing wrong with having a nice steak once a week, once every 2 weeks. If you're that way inclined, I suppose. Looking at so sorry to show you with the recommendations on protein, that will give you about 20 to 40 grams per meal. So just have that in your head. So say about 30. So if you get 30 with lunch and 30 with dinner, you're already on 60 grams of protein. Then with breakfast, maybe another 20, you're up to 80. And then with a couple of snacks, you'll easily hit the protein requirements throughout the day, okay? So these are your snacks, okay? About 10 to 20 grams per snacks, just some ideas. So like handful of nuts or eggs. Eggs are so healthy, full of nutrients, an incredible addition to any healthy, balanced diet. We've got, and we don't want to be over consuming cheese. If you're like me, you could probably blocks of it. Just be aware it's quite high in sodium, but it is full of calcium, good high protein in it as well. So it can be part of an addition or a healthy diet. Glass of milk as well, some quark yogurt or high protein yogurts there. So it's just some ideas to have, for snacks, to have high protein snacks included in your day. Now let's looking at the exercise element. Okay, so the recommendation out there, folks, is to have 3 strength workouts and 150 minutes of moderate aerobic intensity exercise a week. Now that looks very overwhelming straight away. I know it does, but the second part, so that's about 30 minutes of moderate intensity 5 days a week. So like 30-minute walks in a week. Everybody should be doing that as a minimum. Everybody should be doing that. I can't stress that enough, okay? And then 3 strength sessions, about 30 minutes of those along with that. Now, like that, you don't have to go, down to the gym with all the lads in the vests, lifting things. You don't have to do that. You can get some bands like I've shown here. You can do some body weight exercises. Even if you wanted to get a pair of, fill up 2 1-liter bottles full of water. And I guarantee a quick YouTube search and you'll find a home workout that includes bottled water. You can, if you're cleaning up your garden and you're cutting the grass, or you're hauling a lawnmower around, or if anything, it's basically strength exercises, lifting things up, putting them down, and putting your muscles under tension. That's the idea, is putting your muscles under tension. Now, if you like gym classes, when we eventually get back to the gym, if you want to do things like yoga or Pilates are incredible. Same with yoga, great for mobility, great for flexibility. I definitely encourage you, if you find it's, again, if like that, you're starting to feel that your mobility is slowing, that you're getting a little bit stiff, that your joints are getting sore, things like that, like yoga and Pilates will incorporate mobility, flexibility, and strength. So you're kind of knocking everything off with exercises like that. But if you're new, if you're not confident in exercising, if you're someone that knows they've been sedentary for a long time, start gently. Do not throw yourself into this recommendation of 3 workouts a week or anything like that. Just do it gently. Start off small and build up, because you're far more likely to stick at it if you don't overwhelm yourself. Grab a buddy, grab a walking partner, and the 2 of you sit down and you make a promise to each other that you're going to walk like 5 days a week for 30 minutes and hold each other accountable to it, okay? And then when you do it 1 week, do it the next week, and then start increasing the time after that, okay? And make sure you choose something that you actually like. There is no point in you going out and doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or something like that if it's something, the furthest thing that you've ever done before, or you're not going to like it. It's just keeping things in perspective, okay, and taking the slow game at it, because you're far more likely, like I said, to stick at it if you start smaller. So again, this was a subject that was talked about last week in detail, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but essentially about fueling your body. We do so with carbohydrates, slow release carbohydrates. Nothing wrong with spuds, guys. In Ireland, we've been reared on spuds. They're a good, healthy addition to your diet, okay, full of potassium, vitamin C, leave the skins on, and they're full of fiber. They've gotten a bit of a knock in recent years, but then kind of all carbohydrates have, and they shouldn't. Carbohydrates are incredibly important for our health. You do not need to go low carb in order to be healthy. It does not work miracles in your body. Now, if you've got another health condition, yes, low carb diets can work with certain things. But unless you're working with a dietitian on that front or a doctor, you don't need to go low carb, okay? So again, we're opting for whole grain or whole wheat varieties, and that's because they have more fiber, more B vitamins, okay? They take longer to digest, which means that they release their energy that little bit slower, which is better for us. So again, you vary your diet, folks. Women, like for every meal, you go with a couple of fists. And again, same for men. If you've got a kind of a larger appetite, you can go a little bit more there. Carbohydrates, because I want to talk about a component of carbohydrate called fiber. Now, I'm sure we've all heard of fiber. I'm sure we all know we need it, but do we know how much we need, and do we know where to get it from? Okay, I find that this is a really kind of forgotten nutrient. It doesn't really get. It's not a really sexy nutrient. You know, it's not something that you can't really throw too many buzzwords around fiber. But it's really, really important from us. Okay, so it's recommended that we get 30 grams per day, but in Ireland, we probably only get about 18 on average. And so that's down to like these kind of people going gluten-free for no reason and people going low carb for no reason. That will reduce your fiber intake if you don't address your whole diet, okay? So if you start cutting out foods willy-nilly and you don't realize the nutrients that you now have removed from your diet, it can have adverse effects on you, okay? So this is why I keep shouting at you to eat lots of fruit and veg, because there's loads of fiber, and whole grains because there's loads of fiber in them, okay? So a good sign that you don't have enough fiber in your diet is if you suffer from constipation, okay? Constipation or bloating. You need to increase your fiber if you feel that if you suffer from chronic constipation, do talk to your doctor. But if you find it's something that you suffer from occasionally, or when you address your diet that you can relieve it, it could be your fiber intake is an issue, okay? There is many things that cause constipation, but fiber is a really good place to start. Now, in saying that, I don't want anybody here just then to go out and eat 3 tins of beans thinking, oh, Laura said eat loads of fiber. That will also have an adverse effects on you, will not be enjoyable, okay? So gradually up your intake, gradually include more high fiber foods. Now, when we consistently get adequate fiber, okay, lots of really good things happen in our body. So obviously we reduce our risk of heart disease, certain cancers. It can improve our skin health, our gut health, so our digestive health, and can help with weight loss as well. So, we need to make sure that we are focusing on in our diet. You'll find it in the fiber in the parts of the plant-based foods, okay, that the body can't break down. All right, so what happens is our body there's 2 types, soluble and insoluble. And our soluble fiber, it does dissolve in water in our body, and it helps control things like blood sugar levels, reduces our cholesterol. So we're looking at things like beans and porridge and rice bran, but I'm going to show you some examples now in a second. But the second type is insoluble fiber. Now, this does not dissolve in water, so it's bulky, and this is what helps prevent constipation, and it's found in whole grains, okay? So we need to make sure we have enough in our diet. These are some examples, excuse me. So you can see there, folks, it's all kind of plant-based foods, whole wheat foods, whole grain foods, nuts, seeds, and just eating a varied diet. Like, straight away, if you can have a pear a day, 5.5 grams of fiber right there, a handful of nuts and raspberries, the good old spud there again, full of fiber. And then some other examples here, small tin of beans. Nothing wrong with baked beans, guys. Really good addition to the diet, so convenient, so handy to make, really tasty, and full of nutrients, okay? We've got some flaxseed here, or linseed, really good addition if you're someone that suffers with constipation, have it on your breakfast. Porridge here as well. So if you think about this for an example of how to get enough fiber into your diet, if you had a bowl of porridge with a banana and some flaxseed, straight away you're on 10 grams, you're a third of your way. After one meal a day, you're already a third of your way to your fiber intake. So it's just about kind of I suppose balance, making sure you've got lots of different varieties of foods there for you, and having a mixed plate of food at all meals. So let's move on to micronutrients, okay? So micronutrients, these are vitamins and minerals, okay? They're incredibly important for health. I can't overstretch that, okay? It's so important. We only need them in teeny tiny amounts. That's why they're called micro. They're in our foods. They're not something that You know, you can't say, oh, I'm going to have 1,000 milligrams of calcium now in my milk. It's not something that we address that way, but with a varied diet, we know that we'll hit all our micronutrients, okay? So the first one I want to talk about, vitamin D, hugely, hugely, hugely important one. We, at this time of year, we should be supplementing with it because we don't get enough sunshine. We don't really get enough from our foods, okay? So it's mainly found in sunshine and seafood, eggs, and fortified foods. So, you know, like the Avonmore super milk, that will be fortified with vitamin D. I do recommend kind of switching to some of those super milks if you're trying to make sure your partner or the family or the little ones are getting enough nutrients, because these are fortified foods, and it is kind of, it does bump up your nutrient intake. We need it for a lot of different things in our body. It's involved in our immune system, which we all want to keep strong with everything that's going on, our hormone health, our bone health, brain health. The thing is, as we age, our synthesis from vitamin D actually, or from vitamin D from sun exposure actually declines, especially in northern climates, the one that we're in. And vitamin D deficiency in Ireland is very, very common. So we do want to make sure that we're not deficient in vitamin D. We can see kind of the deficiency symptoms here. That's our requirements. The recommendation is a supplement from Halloween to St. Patrick's Day. I'll be very honest, you really should talk to your doctor and get your levels checked, and then he will then or she will recommend how much you need to supplement with. I don't like recommending anybody take a supplement without speaking in terms of like taking a micronutrient supplement, a vitamin or mineral supplement, unless they speak to their GP first. Because some people will just take supplements willy-nilly. I'll just take a multivitamin to cover everything. Our bodies don't really work like that. And it is best just to find out if you are deficient in something before you take one. Like, you should never ever take an iron supplement without checking first, are you deficient in iron? Because it can actually have iron toxicity effects. The same with any vitamin or mineral. There is toxic levels of them, and it is quite dangerous. Like, you should never supplement with different vitamins or minerals at different stages of your life. So I would always speak to your doctor before you supplement and make sure that you you're actually in need of that specific vitamin or mineral. The next one, vitamin B12. Okay, so as we age, and this is a question that somebody asked in the sign-up form, is does our absorption of nutrients decline as we get older? In some it does, and vitamin B12 is one of them. We get less efficient at absorbing vitamin B12, and this actually supports our brain and nervous system. So you can imagine it's very, very important in our diets. And you need to confirm this with a blood test. Okay, this needs to be confirmed with a blood test from your doctor. Your different kind of symptoms would be fatigue, dizziness, loss of balance, or reduced mental function as well. So, you know, where we get it from: dairy products, eggs, meat, shellfish, fortified foods. If you're someone, this is actually a good point to make, if you're someone that has switched out your dairy milk for not dairy milk, chocolate now, your cow's milk for like an almond or a soya milk, do make sure you need to go and look, is that fortified with calcium and B12? Okay, because a lot of people get a lot of their dairy, or excuse me, a lot of their vitamin B12 and calcium from dairy. So if you cut something out, you need to check, is your replacement got these nutrients as well? It's super important, okay? So there are requirements. So if you do feel that you may not be getting enough vitamin B12 in your diet, please do go speak to your doctor as well. The next one is calcium. So again, sources would be dairy products, green leafy plants, and fortified foods. Now, we need calcium to regulate heart rate and maintain bone mass. But again, our calcium absorption actually declines as we age. So we need to be super careful about it. You can see our sources of calcium over here. Like, if you're a good milk drinker or a yogurt eater, if you get lots of greens in your diet, or if you're someone that likes eating sardines, if that's something you like, then you will be getting enough calcium. If you eat a lot of cheeses, that should be fine as well. But just be aware of it. Excuse me. If you find that maybe you don't need any dairy at all, you don't need any greens, you need to make sure that you have enough calcium in your diet. Again, you feel like you're not getting enough, you feel like you don't get any calcium, I would again speak to your doctor about that. So that's all for vitamins and minerals. The rest of your vitamin and mineral should be, they can be met through a well-balanced diet, the one that we spoke about at the start as well. The next nutrient I want to talk about is a fatty acid. So it comes from our fats, that's a macronutrient. I'm sure maybe some of you have heard about this before, omega-3s or fish oils. That's usually how we take them. Incredibly important in our diet, This is a nutrient that we only kind of started realizing the importance of in the last 20 years or kind of 25 years. They're called, the fatty acids specifically that we're talking about are EPA and DHA. Now they have a very, very long chemical name, which I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce, so I'll just use the shorthand for them. EPA and DHA. These two fatty acids are essential for human health. We cannot make them in our bodies, okay? We must get from our diet. So our sources are oily fish and caviar. Now, I don't eat caviar on a daily basis. I don't know about you guys, but oily fish is where I get my omegas from. I have salmon at least twice, salmon, or I'll have mackerel. So one or the other, okay? So you can get some omega-3s from walnuts and flax seeds and oil. It's kind of the vegetarian sources, but this is actually an source, an analytic acid source. So you can convert this into EPA and DHA, but to be honest with you, I would not call this a good source your ALI sources are not a good source of your omega-3s, okay? It's much better to get them in this form for our health. So, like, you know, omega-3 fatty acids are linked with all sorts of really good stuff, okay? So, reducing inflammation, cognitive decline, so it improves our cognitive function, which actually, it's our brain health. It improves eye health. It helps our heart, so it's really, really good for our heart health, and it's even been known to reduce depression. So I definitely recommend, if you're not getting 2 portions of oily fish a week, if you hate oily fish or you don't want to look at salmon or anything like that, then you supplement with it, okay? Now, I'm not going to recommend a brand or anything, but essentially you can go into your local health shop and they'll recommend a good brand for you. You want to know how much of this is in it. So if you see a brand that doesn't have any numbers beside the EPA and DHA on the label, it's not a good brand, put it back. But if it has a given amount for these 2 fatty acids, that's how you know it's a better supplement, okay? So it's definitely really, really important nutrient as we age to keep us healthy. Now, just talking about supplements, okay? There's reasons to supplement, and then there's other reasons not to. All right. Now, if you've been advised to supplement by a trusted medical professional, that's a reason to take a supplement. Or if you know you don't eat a specific food, if you're a vegetarian or vegan, or you know you're missing a certain component, then you speak to your doctor and say, okay, what nutrients should I supplement with? Don't supplement if you're taking a weight loss supplement or you have a poor, because that's not addressing the problem. You know, you need to look at your diet. There's no point in taking a multivitamin thinking you just, that'll cover everything. That's not the way to approach it, okay? Or if you see some celebrity selling something on social media, again, I always include that because it's very, very common. Now I want to talk about creatine. As we're talking about supplements, I want to talk about creatine monohydrate. Now, I don't know if anybody's heard of creatine before. It's something that I would use a lot with my performance nutrition clients. Pretty much every athlete that I work with, I recommend it, as we're advised to do so as performance nutritionists. It's basically what creatine is, and again, I'm not sure if anybody's heard of this, but it's a naturally occurring compound in our bodies. Okay, so we have it in us anyway, because it's in red meat and seafood. So we consume a lot of our creatine. Creatine's it's used as part of one of our energy systems. Okay, it's used as one of the phosphocreatine energy turnover systems. And I'm not going to get too much into that because it's kind of more on the scientific end of things. But we basically recommend that athletes or people that play sport supplement with it because it improves strength. It's used as a buffering agent, and it improves overall performance as well. Okay. So that's something that I would recommend for every person that I work with in order to improve their athleticism. All right. Now, creatine is one of the most well-researched and well-regarded as the most effective supplement that an athlete can take. It's safe, it's proven, it's cleared by all of the sports kind of regulation organizations or regulation bodies. Okay. But the really exciting thing about creatine, it's been around since the early 70s. There's decades of research on it. The really exciting thing is that they're now showing that it's really beneficial for other areas of health. Okay. So now they're showing that, and there's growing collection of evidence that supports the idea that creatine supplementation may actually improve our health as we age. Okay, so taking it long term. It's been shown to now lower cholesterol and our triglyceride levels, to reduce fat in our liver, to work as an antioxidant in our body, to improve our glycemic control, so how well we can control our blood sugars, cancers, enhance our strength and muscle mass. That's what it's always done. Minimize bone loss, improve our functional capacity after different in people with different osteoarthritis, and to actually positively influence cognitive function, so our brain health gets better as well. So that's really exciting. So like I said, it's been around for 40 plus years. It's shown that it's completely safe to take in healthy individuals. There's been no ill effect shown. So there's been athletes that have been taking it for years, but now we're finding out, should we actually be recommending that the general public take it? So it's something to consider. It's something that to be kind of informed on. I think it's really exciting. If you've got if you yourself are into working out and stuff, I would recommend you taking it. It's something I recommend my clients take. It's something to look into if you're, I think in the next 10 to 15 years, it's going to be recommended that everybody take it for its positive health effects. But it's just, you can say you heard it here first if you've never heard of creatine monohydrate before. And I definitely recommend that you have a little bit of a look into it if it is something you're interested in. If you want more information on it, you can let me know as well, and I can provide some links on it, some further reading, if you will. It's definitely something that if you've got any young athletes at home, any young football players or runners or anything like that, any teenagers or kids in their 20s in your house, I can guarantee you they've heard of this, because it's something that, like, I would have all of my GAA players that I work with taking creatine because it's so effective for performance. But now it's really exciting because all of this other information is coming out about it. Moving on to antioxidants, we're kind of getting towards the end here, guys. Moving on to antioxidants. So I'm sure we've all heard of these, but why do we need antioxidants, or why do we think we need antioxidants for ourselves? I'm not sure why. I've got blue lines on my screen, guys, but they seem to have appeared there. Let's talk about oxidative stress. So I'm sure we've all heard of antioxidants and their health benefits, etc. But why do we need what is an antioxidant? But antioxidants are related to oxidative stress. Okay, so oxidation in our body is totally normal. It's a necessary process. It's basically how we metabolize. But oxidative stress then will occur when we've got an imbalance between free radical activity and antioxidant activity. So basically oxidation is totally normal, but oxidative stress isn't. It's basically when functioning properly, free radicals will help fight off disease. Okay, but when there was more free radicals present in our bodies, they're then kept in balance with antioxidants, because if there's too much free radicals in our body and that level's too high, it can start damaging our tissues, our fatty tissue, our DNA, proteins, things like that. And essentially that can lead on then to a number of diseases like diabetes, hardening of the blood vessels, inflammatory conditions, high blood pressure, things like that. And we don't want that. So one method of preventing oxidative stress is to ensure that you're getting enough antioxidants through your diet. Okay, so things like what we've talked about before, 5 servings of fruit and veg. 5 servings of veg and 3 of fruit. Regular exercise. Don't smoke. That's a big one, guys. I don't spend too much time. I think we all know the dangers of smoking. I'm not going to kind of start reiterating, I think, what we all know. Wearing sunscreen is a big one, and sleeping is a big one as well. So we want to prevent this oxidative stress, because oxidative stress leads to aging. That's what happens in our body. That's why our bodies get old and break down and eventually end. It's through this oxidative stress, but it's about managing that, okay? And how we look at, I'm sure you've heard of this buzzword, antioxidant foods. It's basically just fruit and veg, guys. Lots of things, lots of different kinds of berries in your diet. Again, loads of green veg is a big one. And then your salad veg, all the regular stuff. It's not, I'd love to have like loads of like, sexy secrets for to tell you about different things. But honestly, it all comes back to things like fruit and veg, plant-based foods. They're so good for our health. And then things like we've already discussed, foods with vitamin E, vitamin C, fish and nuts, green teas, and then your regular old onions, garlics. These are all have antioxidant properties in them as well. So if you don't have any of this in your diet, obviously it's very important that you shift your focus on and understand and appreciate how important they are. But you don't need to overwhelm yourself either. Start small with it. If you know you don't eat enough fruit and veg, go from maybe you're only eating 2 portions, go to 3 for 1 week, then move it up to 4, then move it up to 5. You don't need to change everything at once either. And let's talk about anti-inflammatory foods now, okay? So anti-inflammatory foods, again, inflammation is something I think we've all heard of, okay? It happens to everyone, whether you're aware of it or not. Your immune system creates inflammation to protect your body from infection, injury, or disease, okay? And there's lots of things you actually wouldn't be able to heal from if you didn't have inflammation in your body. Now, the thing is, long-term, excuse me, long-term or chronic inflammation, that's when we get into damaging effects in our body. And, we have acute and chronic. And chronic is, it's slower and it's less severe, and takes lasts longer than 6 weeks, say. But inflammation is a normal, I suppose, natural part of your immune response, but long-term or chronic inflammation, that can lead to the damaging effects, like I said. And then we need to kind of address that. Okay, so your symptoms for inflammation are heat, pain, redness, swelling, your loss of function. So if you have symptoms that persist, if you're experiencing any signs of long-term inflammation, go see your doctor, okay? Because they need to run some tests and review your symptoms as well and see if you need, so maybe you could potentially have an underlying condition. But if you're looking to know, what can I have in my diet to actually incorporate that anti-inflammation that positive effect, again, straight away, several of the things that we just saw on the last slide, several of the things that we've talked about in detail over the last hour or so that we've been here. Oily fish, lots of different berries, avocados, we know that they're high in fiber as well now, mushrooms, green tea, and different spices as well. So it's important, again, it just comes back to that, having that, focusing on that plant-based diet, those plant-based foods, okay? And tomatoes thrown in there at the end. Quickly, I just want to move on to discussing all about nutrition and menopause, okay? So the menopause is a natural transition in a woman's life when her menstrual cycle comes to an end. But during the kind of transition into menopause and beyond, our hormones change, and then estrogen begins to decline, and that can negatively affect our metabolism. Okay, so it can actually, like that, it can reduce the rate at which we burn calories, so that can potentially lead to weight gain. Your cholesterol could be affected as well, and then our glycemic health, or how well we control our blood sugars, can be affected as well. There's lots of different symptoms around menopause, hot flashes, difficulty sleeping, and then additionally with that, the hormone changes can lead to a decline in bone density, okay, and then that can increase your risk of fracture. So women have to be very, very conscious of things like we said, our calcium intake and our different nutrients, okay. But making some changes to your diet can help alleviate symptoms as well. So having dairy products in our diet. Dairy products are actually antioxidant. They've been shown to have antioxidant potentials, and also calcium, obviously, as well. It has some B12. Now, our healthy fats, whole grains, fruit and veg, and protein. So all the stuff that we've talked about before can help with this as well. Foods to maybe avoid, like that. Anything with like highly processed foods just won't make you feel any better, okay? Anything spicy can kind of accentuate hot flashes or the symptoms around that. Alcohol will reduce your ability to sleep. It will increase inflammation. So maybe just watch your alcohol intake as well, okay? There is no magic cure-all, unfortunately. I'd love to be able to tell you there is. But with your diet, a good, balanced, nutrient-dense diet can definitely help alleviate your symptoms. So I want to talk kind of something quite more practical. I'm aware that we're actually coming to an hour now, and I'm a little bit over time, but there was a lot to talk about in this, so I'm just going to get through this. But I wanted to basically, I showed this last week as well. It's how to build a healthy diet, okay, or excuse me, how to build a balanced breakfast. It's to show it, and we should take this approach for every meal, but it's just, if you don't like breakfast, that's fine. But I find that if you can get a really good nutrient dense breakfast in, you're setting yourself up for a really good nutrient intake for the rest of the day. Or even if the rest of the day goes to pot, it means that you at least you got a lot of nutrients with your breakfast. Okay, so like with any meal, the first thing we look at is complex carbohydrates. So for breakfast, it can be any one of, you know, whole grain bread or porridge. Then we look to a protein source. So then we look to, it might be milk or yogurt or eggs, but something with a good lot of protein. Then we come to our healthy fats. So like that avocado or nuts or seeds or anything can be mixed and match as much as you want. And then fruit and veg. So again, straight away, first meal of the day, you're getting a portion of fruit and veg a day. You take it off. Have 2 if you want, okay? Some more examples of this again, if you have complex carbohydrates, maybe a whole grain bagel or shredded wheat, something that's going to release energy over a long period of time. It's going to be full of B vitamins and full of fiber as well. Protein source could be, you know, if you were to have smoked salmon, you'd have omega-3s, a good protein source as well. And then healthy fats. So again, if you're going with avocado or peanut butter, or your, you know, nuts or seeds, again, mix and match these, and then your fruit and veg at the end there as well. It's just to give you some ideas. It's just to show you what balance looks like. It's not just about having cornflakes and milk. You got to be conscious of thinking, how am I going to get some fruit in here? Am I going to get a portion of veg? Where's my healthy fats? You know, not to overwhelm you, but it's just to get you thinking and give you some ideas. Again, I included this slide because I did get a question on it in the sign up. I'm not going to talk too long on it. It is included in the workshop from last week. So if you wanted to go check that on YouTube, I did talk a lot about snacking and kind of how to improve it if you do find that you're snacking too much. And I included some healthy snack ideas as well. Again, alcohol I did cover last week. Essentially, let's just reiterate that alcohol is not great for us. It's not going to help us in our health goals. It's not going to help us feel good for a long period of time. We need to reduce it. We tend in Ireland to overdrink. So it does have a lot of negative effects around our body. But again, I did cover it last week. Sleep is the same. I talked about it for at length at last week. It's just to be aware of that. Sleep is so important. It's kind of the forgotten health pillar as well. It's so important for lots of different facets of our well-being. If you're not prioritizing sleep, please try to do so. Sleep as we age looks like this, kind of 26 and above, about 7 to 9 hours a night. You can go a little bit under, a little bit over, but we need to make sure we're prioritizing it, okay? So if you're someone that maybe watches TV in bed or has your phone, try to reduce that, okay? Try to get into a routine. Create a nice sleep environment. I said this last week. If you find that your mattress is lumpy, or you don't like your pillow, or you don't like your duvet, change it. You're sleeping, you spend a third of your life sleeping, okay? Invest in your sleep environment. It's worth it, okay? Make sure you're winding down at night. Try and avoid caffeine or alcohol later in the evening as well. That can really disrupt sleep. And no issue taking a little nap in the evening time either, okay? If you find you're tired, during the day, if it gets to 4 o'clock and you're wrecked, or 5 o'clock, and you have the ability to do so, go for a little cat nap. Go for half an hour, go lie down and get back up again. Naps are not a sign that of your ill health or anything like that. There's no issue having a nap. If you find that you're oversleeping, you're falling asleep a lot during the day, or you're exhausted, or you've no energy, go and see your doctor. Go get a blood test. You may be low on something. So guys, just to recap, there's a lot of information in that, okay? We need to focus on the basics for optimal health. There's no magic cure-all. There's no magic pill or potion or powder. There's no magic superfoods. You focus on good old fruit and veg, whole grain breads, spuds, good grains, good lean meats, oily fish, nuts and seeds. They're the basis of a really good diet. Aging may slow us down. It should never stop us, okay? Hydration is a super important part of staying healthy. Focusing on our protein intake and our exercise, resistance exercise, to reduce your risk of sarcopenia. Again, the importance of protein and fiber in our diet. Eating a varied diet is super important as well. and to introduce the topic of creatine to you, and to consider possibly using as an addition in your health goals or your nutrition goals. So folks, thank you very much. There's an awful lot of information in that. I see there's about 15 questions there, so I will start answering questions now. If you have any more, or if you have to shoot off, feel free to do so. Thank you very much if you have come. I'm going to stay on now for maybe the next 20 minutes or so to answer these questions. I think there's a lot of questions there, and I can see people. I'm just looking at the first few coming in here. There's some names, some people don't have names on them. What about genetic factors, osteoarthritis? Okay, so essentially that was probably at the start when I talked about things that are not in our control. So if you are susceptible to osteoarthritis, you need to work with your doctor, and I would recommend working with a dietitian as well. They can help basically plan out a diet for you to ensure that you're getting enough from your foods, calcium, B12, everything that supports bone growth, your protein as well, support your strength and your bone strength as well. With anything like that, you need to work along with a health professional. It's not something I would never expect anybody to take something like that on themselves. I would ask you to speak to your doctor, get your doctor to recommend you to go see a dietitian and work with them to help alleviate the symptoms, but also to make sure your diet is adequate for a condition like that. Liam's asking, is porridge good for you in the morning with fruits, nuts? I'm sure you realize, Liam, after my couple of slides there, absolutely. Porridge is so healthy for us. Nothing wrong with a big bowl of porridge, nuts, seeds, fruit. That is good. If I had a client come to me and tell me they ate that, that would be a dream for me, okay? So definitely a really good choice there. Again, what if you have IBS? What about veg? So again, that's a health condition. With some people with IBS, we recommend a low food map diet, but I would never recommend taking something like that on yourself. You need to work alongside a health professional. Any health conditions, diseases, anything like that, you need to work with a health professional. The internet is a swamp out there full of misinformation and kind of poor advice. Go to a registered health professional to work along with that. Low food map diet is essentially removing some different types of carbohydrates from your diet in order to alleviate those symptoms. It can work with some people, but it's not something that you should do by yourself. Liam's asking what causes heartburn. Lots of different things. Spicy food, too much food, different types of food. Protein can sometimes, if it's too much. It all depends on the individual. It's something that if you're suffering long-term from heartburn, you need to do an elimination diet. So you need to remove certain things, like caffeine can cause it as well. It all depends on the individual. It doesn't come down to one thing. You'll hear me say this a lot of questions. You'll hear me say it depends, because there's no straight answer for a lot of nutrition questions. So I don't mean to be vague, but it's just when I can't give a direct answer, I won't. And that's because there's often a lot of variables going on. Kira's asking, how much avocado or unsaturated fat products should we have every day in a week? Can you include them if you're on a weight loss diet? Absolutely. I encourage you to have at least one avocado a week. Now, if you're trying to lose weight, a little kind of hole that people can fall into is that they start eating lots of healthy food, and that's brilliant. But they'll eat high calorie healthy food, and therefore they won't lose weight. And then they wonder, well, I'm eating so healthily. And then I find out they're having like 2 avocados every day. Avocados are packed full of nutrients, but they're very high in calories. So it's just something to be aware of. There's no issue. Like, I would encourage you to have them, but just you need to be aware of how many calories are in your diet if you are trying to lose weight. And so there's no given amount for an avocado, Kira, but like I would recommend 1 to 2 a week for a healthy intake of your monounsaturated fats from avocado. Irene's asking, should we have or avoid dairy? Unless you have an issue with lactose, or you're lactose intolerant, or you have another issue with a component, maybe you have a milk protein allergy, you can have one of those. You need to go get tested. You need to go talk to your doctor about it. Not an intolerance test, an actual food allergy test, which can only be provided by your doctor. I don't recommend food intolerance testing. there's no need for the general public to avoid dairy. Dairy is an incredibly nutritious source and a nutritious part of our diets. It's anti-inflammatory. Some people think, you know, have mistakenly thought it's pro-inflammatory. It's not. It's anti-inflammatory. It's full of proteins, full of calcium, full of lots of different micronutrients. We definitely shouldn't avoid it. Liam's asked, is dark chocolate 90% okay to eat? Liam, any kind of chocolate's okay to eat. You can have any kind of chocolate, just have it in moderation. But yes, dark chocolate has a few more antioxidants in it, a little bit of fiber, a little bit of iron. So yeah, it can be a really good part of a balanced diet. Kira's asking there, what time would you recommend stop drinking caffeinated products like coffee at? This all depends on the person. I personally wouldn't touch a drop of caffeine after 12 o'clock in the day. If I have a cup of tea at 5, I'll be awake half the night, but that's because I'm quite caffeine sensitive. And even green tea has caffeine in it. But if some people can have a cup of coffee before bed and it's lights out, they've no issue. It all depends on the person, but just be aware that if you're having trouble sleeping, do look at when the last time you had a tea or coffee is at, because it may be just that you're having caffeine too late in the day. I just saw Stephen actually share the link last week's webinar, so that's brilliant. Another question, is sarcopenia more common in thinner than heavier people? Is it also more common in women than men? I honestly don't know the answer to that, if I'm being truly honest. As much as I've researched and I'm educated in, that is not something I know off the top of my head. I would think that thinner people are more prone to it, but that's not, I can't say that for definite. And I can't say for more definite, if it's more common in women than men. Again, if I was kind of hypothesizing, I would say women, because they do have less muscle mass than men, but that will all depend on the individual as well. So I won't give an answer to a question I don't know the answer to, okay? It's something I can definitely look up for you and come back to you on, but I don't know off the top of my head. And Kieran's asking, how much creatine should you take? So the recommended dosage is 5 grams per day. Now, if you want to do a loading phase, Kieran, you can. It's not necessarily required in all individuals, but I would say 5 grams per day. Bob's your uncle. I throw it into my porridge every morning, just mix it up and it's fine. I'm just going to pull up the questions. Oh, excuse me, guys. I'm going to pull up those questions that people asked, if people are still with me, which I saw plenty of people still here. So I just want to go through this Google form, excuse me, and I'll minimize that. I'm going to look at some of the questions that people did ask me. So I'll go back to the start here. I do keep asking questions, guys. I'm happy to stay on for as long as people have questions. There's Anya asking, very good question to start. What are the best foods to maintain joint care and mobility? So that's kind of what we talked about. So your omega-3s, really good for your joints. And I'm sure you've heard about that years ago, and it was, cod liver oil, which was also very good as well. But again, anything with antioxidants that are going to reduce any inflammation in your joints. So, and your protein for good health. So again, comes back to your fruit and your veg, and plenty of it, and plenty of different varieties. Our next, I'm just going to fly through these questions here, guys, once I can see. So again, if you want to type them into the group, and I'll get back to them. I'm just looking through the questionnaire form. Let me see here. Sorry, I thought we had maybe. Oh yes. Raf is asking, what is my view on cholesterol lowering drinks like Benecol? Or are you in favor of healthy eating in moderation? So definitely in favor of healthy eating in moderation, but also yes, Benecol, if you have high cholesterol and you're working with your doctor and you have advice from your doctor, they can help with it as well. There's no issue there. Of course, guys, if you have any health conditions, you always go to your doctor first, or if you think you've symptoms or anything, you go speak to your doctor. You don't just kind of do an old internet Google search and then take the advice of some random stranger online. Be very selective about where you get nutrition advice from and where you get your medical advice from. I can really stress that you need to make sure that you're getting sound advice. Always look to a registered health professional. If you're looking to a nutritionist, it has to be a registered nutritionist, same with a dietitian. And please don't take advice off Mary down the road when she said milk is bad for you and you shouldn't drink it anymore, because that's not a smart thing to do. Mary's there asking what foods to avoid when you're liable to IBS as you age. So again, I would work with a medical professional on this. Do try and find out what your trigger foods are. Some foods are trigger foods for some people, so you need to figure out what your trigger foods are and remove them. And then maybe an exclusion diet or a food map diet, but I would work with a professional on that. So Irene's asking nutrition advice for me in my mid-50s. So I think we would have covered all that fairly rigorously over the last hour. Mary's asking here, another Mary, last year I was diagnosed with celiac disease. What foods can I have to stay healthy? You work with a medical, or you work with a nutrition professional on that. Obviously you don't have any foods with gluten in them because you can't have them. It's a gluten allergy. But I would work, because you need to make sure you have a well-rounded diet for that. I can see a few more questions coming in the chat box, which I'm going to jump back to now. I'm going to pull up the chat here again, guys. Liam saying, asking, are turmeric supplements okay to take? Yes, Liam. There's no concrete evidence, Liam, that they're excuse me. There's no concrete evidence that turmeric supplements can aid our health or anything like that. It's no harm taking them, but you stick to the recommended label. The recommended intake on the label. I'm reading and talking at the same time, guys. Okay, again, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to go through them. I'm just looking through the rest of these questionnaires. Annette was asking there, foods to help prevent cancer and inflammation. So again, I think we talked about that lots. Definitely lots of fruit and veg, your balanced diet there again. Katja's asking, what foods should we avoid to reduce or avoid fat around the middle? So that is less about the foods and more about the calorie intake. So really kind of high processed, high calorie foods would be the one to reduce there, and overeating as well, because food does not determine whether we lose or gain weight. It's not the type of food, excuse me, it's the amount of food. So it comes down to calories in and calories out, which is a topic for another day. Liam was asking there, do we take, this is in the questionnaire, should we all take a D3 supplement for winter? So we covered that one there. So I'm really glad I covered a lot of your questions throughout that. Katrina's saying, what foods in your diet to boost immunity? So again, that does come back to, we improve our immunity by a well-rounded, well-balanced diet as well. Deirdre's asking, is intermittent fasting good? So if anybody has heard of intermittent fasting, it's essentially eating within a window. So you might only eat from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. It doesn't have any major benefits on our health. It's kind of marketed to be this amazing way of eating that cures all your ails. It doesn't. If you're trying to lose weight, it may be a good method for you, but that all depends on if it works for you. I personally couldn't not eat until 12. I'd be starving and cranky and you wouldn't want to come near me, so it wouldn't suit me. But for some people, it can remove some calories from their diet and help them to a restricted window that helps them lose weight. It's something you could try. I would recommend looking into it a bit further, but it definitely doesn't do any miracles for our health or our bodies. Siobhan was asking, as a woman in her 60s, my hair is starting thin, any suggestions to help with this? So that will go back to your diet. It may be genetic as well, so it may be outside of your control. I've high cholesterol, I'm not on medication, can I eat eggs? Again, you need to go talk to your doctor about that. Eggs are high in cholesterol, but it's not dietary, or it's dietary cholesterol, which has less effect on the cholesterol in our bodies. Okay, so I don't like giving out advice around that because I don't know your circumstance, if you don't mind, but I will go speak to your doctor. Teresa's asking, does porridge make you feel bloated? Well, me personally, it doesn't. I can't speak for anybody else, but it may make you feel bloated because it is, it's a complex carbohydrate. It absorbs a lot of water, so it may make you feel bloated. I would recommend, if it does, just to reduce the amount of porridge you're eating. So maybe just reduce the bowl or have a smaller bowl. A couple of more questions in the chat there. That was Siobhan's question I actually just asked there. How about taking over the counter for joint health? Oh, glucosamine, absolutely. I would, yeah, glucosamine can be very, very good. Again, it's middling evidence, so it hasn't been completely confirmed that it helps joint health, but it definitely, there's a lot of evidence around it to suggest that glucosamine will help your joint health. Yes, indeed. Cornelia saying, I've been trying to lose weight for health reasons, but I've plateaued over the last few weeks. What can I do to kickstart it again? How can I preserve muscle mass? Okay, so first of all, if you've plateaued, you need to address your calories in. So it just means that you're matching your calorie intake with your calorie expenditure. So I do recommend looking at that. Perhaps bring in more walking. if you're not, or a little bit more exercise. And if you want to preserve your muscle mass, increase your protein intake as well. I don't mean to skim over that, but there's a lot to answer in there, and I could talk for hours on it, and we just don't have time tonight, but definitely maybe a topic we can cover another night. Fran's asking, is use of fish oil supplementation beneficial? And I definitely answer that one. Let me see. John's asking, with COVID-19 restrictions and work from home, many people are unusually sedate. Can you advise on how we can rev our metabolism? Okay, so these things about revving up metabolism, or even, you know, like boosting your metabolism, we can't really do that. That's not really something that we have control over. Our metabolism's really our metabolism. We can make sure that, you know, we're healthy with good bone health and good muscle health and good organ functioning and things like that. But if you want to kind of feel healthier, then yeah, do all the things we talked about tonight in terms of your dietary intake and your exercise, and that will definitely help you feeling better. If you find that you've been sitting around the last few weeks and, you know, Christmas and now we've another lockdown, just try and walk. My best advice is walking is one of the most underrated forms of exercise ever. It can be great. It's great for your mind. It's great for your body. You know, definitely can clear the head if you've been stuck in front of the laptop all day. It's a good excuse to get mobile. It improves your mobility as well. Definitely try and increase your walking over the next few weeks. Just a menopause question there, which I would have answered. I can see one more question coming in here. Any benefits of ice cream? Well, there's a little bit of calcium, there's a little bit of protein. Ice cream is very good for your soul, so I definitely recommend an occasional ice cream during the summer if you've got a bit nicer weather than this. And saying healthy foods to help you put on weight, so go with like nutrient dense healthy foods there, and nuts, seeds, and avocado, so high fat, those kind of foods be great addition if you're trying to put on a little bit of weight there as well, which is great to see. Caroline, how to keep the nutrition going for a family of different ages? That's a tough one. Sneaking veg into the dinners would be a big one. Going for family favorites. I talked about this last week. Family favorites, spaghetti bolognese, lasagna, and getting a load of veg into the sauce. So blitzing up the sauce with like loads of veg, you know, lentils, carrots, peppers, and then that sneaks them in if you're trying to get more veg into the kids' diet. Barbara's talking there about what I can eat in between meals. I always go for purple snacks or the chocolate digestive biscuits. Try and get more fruit and nuts in, yogurts, things like that. I think, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. There's a couple of questions there. If I might have missed one. Oh, Marion's just saying thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming again, Marion. So, guys, I will wrap up there. Thank you so much for your attention. That is a long old session, but I really didn't want to skip over any information because it's so important, and I want to make sure that you're getting the best out of the session as well. So I'm happy to answer if you do have questions, guys. If you want to get me on Instagram or Facebook, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have there, or even email me, laura@bridgenutrition.ie, or my Instagram or Facebook is Bridge Nutrition, and you'll see my face there, so you can't miss me. Thank you very much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I know it's a lot to take in there. You don't have to start big, remember. Small changes stick, and you don't have to do all of everything at once, just little bits at a time.
Cheers, Laura.
Yeah, thanks very much.
That was brilliant. Really good. I just want to point out for the recording, I did not ask the ice cream question. That was not me.
I actually think it was my auntie in America. She's actually tuning in from Nantucket, so I feel she snuck that one in there.
Brilliant. That was excellent. Really good. And I know I said this the last time, but like, really do appreciate everything you do for us, Laura, because like, we ask you to come on and do an hour, and you're happily there sitting answering questions 90 minutes later. So we really do appreciate it, you know.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy it. I think you can probably see that it's not a chore for me. I really do enjoy it, and even taking away the small, guys, if even you take away 10 or 15% of what we discussed here tonight, that's enough to have a really good positive impact on your health as well. Just remember that.
So again, and thanks to everyone as well for coming along tonight. It's brilliant to see such engagement as well. And like the questions that you ask really enhance the session too. So that's really important as well. I've emailed everyone already now with the details for next week's one, as well as a couple of little links to some of the things that Laura would have spoke about earlier, like last week's session. And And if you do have any questions, do fire them towards us, and we'll endeavour to get them answered or investigated or whatever we have to do. But thanks again tonight, guys. Really appreciate it, and hopefully see you all again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.